It is 5:40 in the morning in Rotorua, and steam is rising out of the ground before the sun does. Not from a kettle, not from a chimney, from the earth itself, cracked open in 100 places, breathing sulfur into a cold sky. 15 minutes away, someone is making breakfast on a stove powered by that same heat, and they won't think twice about it. This is New Zealand, a country where the ground itself refuses to sit still, where the smell of sulfur mixes with fresh-cut grass, and where nobody finds that combination strange anymore. This is Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud. 2 main islands and roughly 700 smaller ones, stretched across the edge of the Pacific like an afterthought of geography. Just over 5 million people live here, spread across a landmass nearly the size of the United Kingdom, which means for every person you pass on a South Island highway, there might be 6 sheep watching you do it. Population density here is barely 20 people per square kilometer, one of the lowest in the developed world. The question was never whether this is a beautiful country. Everyone already assumes that. The real question is what that beauty is standing next to. Because paradise, it turns out, sits directly on top of a fault line, one that has rearranged entire cities within living memory. Now the part almost no visitor expects. New Zealand was the last major landmass on Earth to be settled by humans. While Rome was falling and empires were rising and collapsing across Europe and Asia, this entire country sat completely untouched. No footprints, no fires, no history at all, until Polynesian voyagers arrived by canoe roughly 700 years ago, navigating open ocean using nothing but stars, swells, and memory. Think about that for a second. An empty country the size of Britain, waiting while the rest of the world had already written most of its story. Entire civilizations had already risen and fallen in Egypt, in China, in Mesoamerica, before a single human being ever set foot here. But look closer, and the story of arrival becomes a story of survival. The land the first Polynesian settlers found had no mammals at all. No wolves, no deer, no predators of any kind. Just birds, some of them flightless giants, twice the height of a man. The moa is extinct now, hunted into memory within a few centuries of human arrival, alongside the massive Haas eagle that once hunted it. The extinction happened astonishingly fast, a reminder of how fragile an ecosystem becomes once it meets people for the first time. But the absence it left behind still shapes how New Zealanders think about their environment today. Fiercely, almost religiously protective, with predator control programs, native bird sanctuaries, and a national goal to eliminate invasive predators entirely by 2050, because they've already watched what disappears when no one is paying attention. Hold on to that. We will get there. Let's talk about daily life, because the postcard version and the live version are not the same film. Breakfast here often means flat whites. Yes, New Zealanders will argue for hours that they invented the drink, not Australia, paired with something on toast, usually avocado, sometimes Marmite, a yeasty spread so polarizing it basically splits households in two. Lunch is grabbed fast, often from a dairy, the Kiwi word for a corner store that sells everything from meat pies to fishing bait to phone top-ups. Dinner leans hearty. Lamb, of course, raised on some of the greenest pasture on the planet, but also increasingly seafood pulled straight from cold southern waters, green-lipped mussels, crayfish, snapper, whitebait fritters in the spring. Because when your entire country is coastline, the ocean becomes half your pantry. Beyond the plate, food culture here carries its own quiet pride. A hangi, the traditional Māori method of cooking meat and vegetables in an earth oven heated by hot stones, can take most of a day to prepare, and is still reserved for gatherings that matter. Weddings, tangihanga, milestone birthdays. Wine regions like Marlborough and Central Otago have gone from unknown to globally celebrated in barely 2 generations. Built almost entirely on Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir, grown on land that was sheep pasture within living memory. The climate refuses to behave. Auckland in the north feels almost subtropical. Humid summers pushing past 25 degrees with palm trees along the harbor, while Queenstown in the south can drop below freezing with snow dusting the peaks above vineyards, still mid-harvest. Locals have a saying, you can experience 4 seasons in one day, and it's barely an exaggeration, especially in the mountains where sunshine can turn to hail in the space of an hour. Traffic is a smaller headache than in most countries. Auckland has real congestion, ranked among the more gridlocked mid-sized cities in the world during peak hours. But step outside the 2 or 3 major cities, and the roads empty into long, winding stretches where the biggest hazard isn't other cars. It's a herd of sheep deciding the highway looks like a good place to cross, or a possum frozen in the headlights at dusk. The transport network tells its own story of isolation. Ferries link the North and South Islands across Cook Strait, a crossing that can turn from glassy calm to genuinely rough within the same afternoon. And domestic flights are often cheaper and faster than the alternative of driving 8 hours around a mountain range. Public transport is limited outside the main centers, which means most households run at least 1 car per adult, and hitchhiking, while less common than decades ago, still survives in rural pockets as a practical way to get around. And the animals here don't just share the land, they define entire regions of it. More sheep than people by a wide margin, dairy cattle stretching to the horizon across the Waikato and along the coasts, fur seals that will absolutely nap on a public footpath and dare you to make it their problem. Kea, the world's only alpine parrot, will strip the rubber trim off a parked car out of pure curiosity, and nobody who lives near the mountains is even surprised anymore. Family structure still carries the imprint of Māori concepts like wānau, the idea that family extends far past bloodline into a wider circle of responsibility and belonging. It shows up everywhere, in how communities respond to crisis, in how marae, the traditional meeting grounds, still anchor towns to their history and host everything from funerals to celebrations, in how auntie and uncle get used for people who share no blood relation at all, just care and proximity built over generations. Yes, this is the part the title promised, so let's address it honestly. New Zealand is consistently ranked among the world's most striking populations, and it isn't hard to see why on any street in Wellington or Christchurch. Part of it is genuine genetic diversity, a blend of Māori and Pacific Islander heritage alongside European settler ancestry, plus growing Asian and Pacifica communities, producing a visual mix you don't see in many other places on Earth. Part of it is lifestyle, an outdoor culture built around hiking, surfing, and rugby that keeps people active almost by default, not by gym-chasing trend, where a weekend without at least one hike feels almost incomplete to most locals. But here is a fact that says more about the country than any magazine ranking could. New Zealand was the first nation on Earth to give women the right to vote, back in 1893, nearly 3 decades before most of the Western world caught up. That single law reshaped everything downstream from it. Female participation in politics here isn't a talking point, it's ordinary. The country has had multiple female prime ministers, and Māori women in particular hold enormous cultural authority as keepers of oral history, land rights, and tradition. The pivot, then, isn't about appearances at all. It's about the fact that a nation known for beautiful landscapes and beautiful people quietly built one of the most functionally equal societies on the planet, and did it more than a century before it was fashionable elsewhere. It is worth noting how young this equality actually had to fight to become normal. Land ownership, voting rights, and leadership roles for Māori women were suppressed for generations, even after the 1893 milestone, and true parity remained a slow, contested process well into the 20th century. What makes the achievement remarkable is not that it happened without struggle, but that the struggle itself became part of the national identity. A country that likes to see itself as fair-minded because it has had to work repeatedly to actually become that way. Now, the resilience underneath all of it. New Zealand's history is short compared to most nations, but it isn't gentle. The musket wars of the early 1800s reshaped Māori iwi across the islands before European colonization even fully began, with entire tribal territories redrawn within a single generation. The signing of the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840 promised partnership between the Crown and Māori, and then, for well over a century, that promise was broken in land confiscations, forced assimilation policies, and generational loss of language, with the Reo Māori nearly disappearing from daily use by the mid-20th century. Only in the last few decades has serious redress begun, with settlements returning land and funding to iwi worth billions of dollars collectively, and a cultural renaissance putting Te Reo Māori back into schools, government, and everyday speech. Resilience here isn't a slogan. It's written into court settlements, into revived language now taught in early childhood centers nationwide, into carvings on meeting houses that survived being nearly erased by policy. Beyond Waitangi, the 20th century brought its own trials. 2 world wars that took a disproportionate toll on a small population, with entire towns losing a generation of young men at Gallipoli and on the Western Front. Memorials to which still anchor the center of nearly every town square. The 2011 Christchurch earthquake killed 185 people and leveled much of the city's historic core, and the rebuild that followed became its own case study in community resilience, with residents turning empty lots into pop-up gardens and shipping container malls while reconstruction slowly caught up. Here is where the armchair daydream becomes a spreadsheet. New Zealand sells itself globally as a slower, gentler way of life, and for tourists, it delivers. A week exploring Milford Sound, tasting Central Otago Pinot Noir, and hiking the Tongariro Alpine Crossing can feel almost affordable compared to Western Europe. But talk to someone actually living in Auckland, and the tone changes fast. Median house prices in the country's largest city have hovered well above $900,000 in a nation where the median annual income sits far below what that number implies is sustainable. Groceries, largely imported or shipped between islands, run noticeably higher than in comparable countries, with a single supermarket trip for a family of 4 often exceeding $200. Rent alone can devour close to half a young worker's paycheck in the major cities, and a full generation now speaks openly about giving up on ever owning a home at all. The cheapness a tourist feels on a 2-week trip is a distance measured in someone else's decade-long mortgage. Wages have not kept pace with the cost pressure. Minimum wage sits around $23 an hour, while a modest 1-bedroom rental in Auckland or Wellington can easily run $500 to $650 a week, meaning a single full-time minimum wage income barely covers housing before food, transport, or savings even enter the conversation. Petrol, imported entirely, tracks global prices with an added premium for shipping to one of the most remote developed economies on Earth, and power bills spike hard through the cold, damp winters in homes that, controversially, are often built without the insulation standards common in colder countries. If you're enjoying the journey so far, a like and a subscribe genuinely help this channel keep making videos like this one. This is the secret the title promised, and it deserves to be said plainly. New Zealand's isolation, the very thing that makes it feel safe, has also made it a target for exactly the kind of crime that thrives in quiet places. Rural drug production, particularly methamphetamine, has quietly become one of the country's most serious social problems, straining small communities that don't have the infrastructure or the policing resources to fight it. Scam operations targeting the elderly have risen sharply in recent years, often run from overseas call centers exploiting how trusting small-town life can be. And while violent crime rates remain low by global standards, certain neighborhoods in South Auckland and pockets of provincial towns carry real risk after dark, driven far more by poverty and addiction than by malice. The danger here is quieter than in most countries people worry about, but it's real, and pretending otherwise does no favors to the people actually living with it every day. But then there's the landscape, and it's genuinely hard to overstate. New Zealand holds 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including Tongariro National Park, sacred to Māori, and one of the first properties on Earth listed for both cultural and natural significance simultaneously. Fiordland alone contains rainforest older than most human civilizations, glacier-carved sounds where waterfalls drop hundreds of meters into water, so still it mirrors the cliffs perfectly on a calm morning. The country sits on more than a dozen active volcanic zones, hosts geothermal fields that have been called the closest thing on Earth to another planet's surface, and shelters bird species, like the flightless, nocturnal kiwi, found nowhere else at all, alongside marine life ranging from migrating humpback whales to the world's smallest and rarest dolphin, found only in these waters. Call it a river that escaped paradise and never looked back, cutting through mountains nobody had to invent because the country did the work for them over millions of years of fire and ice. The nature here doesn't stop at postcard views either. Glowworm caves in Waitomo turn cavern ceilings into replicas of the night sky, entirely lit by bioluminescent larvae. The Southern Alps hold more than 3,000 glaciers, though many are retreating fast enough that guides now measure the changes year over year rather than decade over decade. Stewart Island, the country's third major island, has more kiwi birds than people. And after dark, it is one of the few places on the planet certified as an international dark sky sanctuary, where the Milky Way is visible without a single filter or explanation needed. So here is where it becomes useful. If this country is going to pull you in, here is where to put your feet first. Start in Auckland for the harbors, the volcanic cones you can climb inside city limits, and a food scene shaped by its Pacific and Asian communities. Then push south to Rotorua for geothermal parks and Māori cultural experiences done with genuine respect, not spectacle. Queenstown earns its reputation as the adventure capital. Bungee jumping was essentially invented there in the 1980s, but the hidden gem is the Catlins, a stretch of wild southern coastline most tourists skip entirely, where waterfalls hit the beach and yellow-eyed penguins nest undisturbed by crowds. Budget carefully, accommodation swings wildly by season. Camper vans are the local hack for cutting costs while covering long distances, and tap water is safe to drink almost everywhere, a small mercy for a country this remote from anywhere else. For those with more time, the practical guide extends further south and further off the beaten path. Dunedin offers Edinburgh-style architecture and a wildlife peninsula home to the only mainland royal albatross colony on Earth. Abel Tasman National Park rewards a multi-day coastal walk with golden beaches accessible only on foot or by water taxi. And for travelers watching their budget, regional buses like Intercity connect most towns affordably. Hostel networks are well established even in remote areas. And off-peak shoulder season, April to June, or September to October, cuts both crowds and prices significantly compared to the summer rush. Maybe the real question isn't whether New Zealand is as beautiful as the title promised. It's whether you've ever once lived a single day the way the people here do, built around land they nearly lost, weather that refuses to cooperate, and a quiet insistence that the ground beneath your feet is worth protecting, even when it's actively steaming. If this journey meant something to you, that like and subscribe genuinely helps more than you'd think, and we'll see you on the next one.